In 1958, county workers renovating the Adams County Courthouse in Natchez, Mississippi, discovered a sealed ledger in the basement. It had remained untouched for 112 years. Inside were 73 pages of meticulous entries documenting 5 months in 1846, daily records of weights, behaviors, and punishments. The final entry, dated November 9th, contained only 4 words. The treatment is concluded. Edmund Halloway was known throughout Adams County as a model Christian gentleman. At 51, he owned Riverbend Plantation, 2,000 acres along the Mississippi River, and 137 enslaved people. He attended church unfailingly, taught Bible study, and donated generously to local causes. His reputation for moral rectitude was unimpeachable. His daughter Margaret was his greatest disappointment. Born in 1823, Margaret had received an unusual education for a woman of her era. Edmund had hired tutors in literature, history, and languages, intending to make her an accomplished wife for some wealthy man. Instead, education had given Margaret ideas. She read Mary Wollstonecraft and abolitionist newspapers. She questioned slavery openly at dinner parties. She refused 4 marriage proposals. By 1846, Margaret was 23, unmarried, and openly defiant. She weighed 247 pounds, grotesque by contemporary standards. But her weight was merely symptomatic of the real problem. Margaret had a mind of her own and refused to pretend otherwise. Edmund traveled to New Orleans in May of 1846. He told people he was conducting business. In truth, he consulted with men who specialized in breaking difficult slaves, overseers who understood systematic psychological destruction. When he returned, he had a plan. On June 13th, Edmund announced that Margaret required specialized treatment for her condition. He had constructed a treatment facility in the large barn behind the main house. 3 enslaved men would supervise her daily regimen. Benjamin, 38, who had a wife and 3 children. Samuel, 27, who had watched his mother sold away when he was 8. And Daniel, 33, a literate carpenter. Edmund gave them explicit instructions. They would treat his daughter exactly as they would treat any field worker. They would show no mercy or special consideration. And if they refused, their families would be sold separately to plantations in the Deep South, never to see each other again. The 3 men understood they had no choice. Margaret entered the barn on June 14th. Edmund explained that she would live and work there until she demonstrated sufficient improvement, until she learned discipline, humility, and obedience. The routine was brutal: grinding corn at the mill for 8 hours, hauling water, completing whatever tasks Benjamin assigned. 2 meals of cornbread and beans daily. Sleep on a thin mattress. Edmund visited regularly, weighing her weekly, documenting everything in his ledger with clinical precision. Within 3 weeks, Margaret had lost over 20 pounds. By late July, she had stopped expressing anger or defiance. She simply worked when told, ate when given food, slept when allowed. Edmund was pleased. His ledger noted: subject weight down to 202 pounds, compliance now automatic, emotional effect flattened. In August, something shifted. As Edmund introduced increasingly arbitrary punishments, accusations of infractions that never occurred, unpredictable treatment designed to strip away any sense of control, Margaret began to see her 3 supervisors differently. They were trapped too. Benjamin apologized first. "I'm sorry," he said quietly one day when they were alone, "for all of this." Margaret looked at him. "I understand. You're as trapped as I am." That simple acknowledgement changed everything. They began talking, dangerous, whispered conversations. Daniel told her about being taught to read, about how literacy had opened his mind to ideas about justice he could never act upon. Samuel spoke of his mother, sold away, whereabouts unknown. Margaret shared her own suffocation under expectations that women existed only to marry and produce children. They recognized in each other a shared humanity that society denied. In early September, while repairing a window frame in the main house, Daniel slipped into Edmund's study. In an unlocked drawer, he found a leather journal documenting a breeding program Edmund had operated for over a decade. Systematic forced reproduction of enslaved people to produce valuable laborers. But the most recent entries revealed Edmund's true intentions for Margaret. He had never planned to end the treatment. He intended to keep her imprisoned indefinitely, breaking her will completely, so she would accept being used as breeding stock. The children she produced with enslaved men would themselves be legally enslaved. Edmund's property to sell or use as he wished. That night, Daniel told Margaret what he had discovered. She said only 4 words. "We leave tomorrow night." On September 9th, Benjamin started a fire on the far edge of the plantation as a distraction. While overseers rushed to contain it, Samuel and Daniel unlocked the barn and led Margaret into the darkness. Benjamin joined them soon after. They traveled north for 4 nights, hiding during the day, moving parallel to the Mississippi River. By the 4th night, they had covered over 20 miles. They were exhausted, starving, terrified, but still free. Then the dogs found their scent. They ran, crashing through underbrush, the baying growing closer. Ahead stood a barn, isolated and abandoned. They threw themselves inside and barred the door. Within minutes, Edmund's voice cut through the darkness outside. "Margaret, come out now and I will show mercy. Stay inside and I will burn the barn with all of you in it." Through gaps in the walls, Margaret saw torches, at least a dozen men. There was no other exit. They were trapped. She opened the door slightly. "Father, let these men go. They were only following your orders. I forced them." Edmund laughed. "They destroyed property. They will face appropriate punishment, as will you. Now come out." Margaret stepped outside and walked toward her father. Edmund smiled, thinking she was surrendering. Instead, she grabbed the torch from his hand and ran back to the barn. The fire caught immediately on the dry hay. Margaret dropped the bar back into place, locking the door from inside. Edmund and his men pounded on it, but the door was solid. Margaret turned to face Benjamin, Samuel, and Daniel. Smoke was already filling the barn. "Why did you do that?" Benjamin asked. "Because this way we choose," Margaret said. "We're not hunted down and tortured. We're not separated and sold. We die together on our terms, denying him what he wanted." Daniel took Margaret's hand, then Samuel's. Benjamin completed the circle. They stood connected as flames rose around them, choosing their end rather than accepting what others would have done to them. They died from smoke inhalation before the flames reached them. Edmund told neighbors that Margaret had died tragically in a barn fire during an escape attempt. He commissioned a marble headstone. The ledger documenting those 5 months was sealed and placed in the courthouse basement, where it would remain hidden for 112 years. Benjamin, Samuel, and Daniel were buried in unmarked graves. Their families were sold away within a week, but Ruth, Benjamin's widow, told her children what their father had done, how he had risked everything to help someone who needed help. Those children told their children. The story was passed down through generations. In 2003, archaeologists excavating the barn's foundation found a gold locket fused to burned timber. Inside were 2 miniature portraits and 3 legible letters engraved on the back. M.A.H. Margaret Ashworth Halloway. In 2007, a descendant of Samuel shared family documents that confirmed the details, including Ruth's 1855 letter describing how Margaret had deliberately set the fire, choosing to die free rather than live enslaved. Today, a historical marker stands near where the barn once stood. The text is carefully worded, clinical, avoiding the most disturbing details. The land is private now, just a field where soybeans grow. But the story persists in academic papers and family narratives, a reminder that cruelty operates systematically and that resistance takes many forms. Margaret, Benjamin, Samuel, and Daniel made choices that affirmed their humanity in a system designed to deny it. They were not heroic in any conventional sense. 4 people died, and the system that created the horror continued for another generation. But within the context of impossible situations and limited options, they made choices that denied their oppressors total victory. That is worth remembering.